Today, we're going to talk about strategies you can use to make the case for 3D printing models, as well as provide tools for justifying the cost of investment, such as expense calculations and methods for measuring return. For designers, engineers, and product managers, the quality, cost efficiencies, and time savings you can get by producing models, prototypes, tooling, and production parts with Stratasys 3D printing far outweigh the initial price tag of adoption. However, convincing management and accounting teams that the benefits justify the investment can be somewhat challenging. When convincing C-suite level decision makers, dollars speak louder than features and benefits, so you may need to quantify the value of switching from conventional methods to 3D printing and provide real, tangible examples. You'll also need to establish and illustrate a direct correlation between efficiencies gained and money saved. Let's review an example that demonstrates one way you can quantify value. From medical devices to phone chargers, Synergy Design is a product development company that creates many of the goods we use every day. To speed up and sharpen their prototyping and decision-making process, Synergy brought a multi-material Stratasys 3D printer in-house that would enable them to produce full-color, whole product prototypes in a fraction of the time. These capabilities played a key role in streamlining production when Synergy needed to redesign a keypad for an emergency response system used in the aftermarket automotive industry. Before 3D printing, prototyping a single keypad panel would require multiple vendors and steps, including CNC machining and water printing for the body, casting for the light pipes, sanding for smoothness, silicone engraving, and additional printing for the buttons. The whole process would take anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks and cost about $700 per unit. But with their in-house 3D printer, Synergy was able to create the same keypad prototype in 1 day at about $200 per unit, which resulted in a 90% decrease in lead time and a 70% reduction in production costs. These types of quantified results are what can help you build a strong case for why your company should adopt 3D printing into its own process. Now, when you're making a business case for 3D printing, it's important to first recognize who your audience is and who the final decision makers will be. Knowing your audience will help you tailor your proposal to include relevant information that address the concerns and desires of the decision makers. When drafting your proposal, it should contain 3 parts: an executive summary, situational analysis, and financial justification. The executive summary is a short synopsis of the situational analysis and financial justification. The situational analysis describes the current situation, proposed solution, alternative solutions, and associated risks. And the financial justification presents the anticipated return on investment by providing an analysis of the monetary outflow as well as expected financial gains. While building the financial justification, seek guidance from your finance department. They can assist you with selecting the proper performance measures such as ROI or payback period. They can also aid with data collection and calculation methods and provide guidance on items like hurdle rates, which are the lowest threshold for which an investment will be considered. To build a winning justification, there are 3 strategies you can employ. Used alone or in combination, these approaches can help you build a strong financial case for investing in 3D printing. The first strategy is to take a tiered approach. You can start by calculating the expected savings 3D printing would offer as a substitution for the work currently done with traditional manufacturing techniques or through third-party 3D printing services. If larger financial returns are needed to obtain approval, try proving how 3D printing can help augment production. For example, the speed, efficiency, and capabilities offered by 3D printing help remove the barriers of time, cost, and effort, making it easy and practical to produce more prototypes, tools, or production parts to deliver more value. The challenge here will be to calculate a measurable and accepted value that results from producing more. Otherwise, 3D printing may be viewed as an increase in expenses. Lastly, you can justify how 3D printing can help the company extend into other areas of production and business. Extension can deliver the most significant value since it is changing and improving processes, but it's the hardest to quantify because the impact can only be forecasted, which makes its value susceptible to debate and doubt. A second justification strategy is to target a specific goal, and cost reduction is a great place to start. Profit growth is a goal for any business action, and it is achieved by either increasing sales or decreasing expenses. But expenses are a current fact, while improved sales are a forecasted possibility. So a reduction in expenses is more tangible and defensible than a projection of increased sales. Additionally, cost containment is usually a priority for all companies and therefore a top-of-mind issue for management. You can also target the justification towards solving existing problems and leveraging what corporate management has already accepted as fact. There are two advantages to this approach. One, it addresses a current pain that the company seeks to eliminate, and two, it outlines how much this pain is costing the company. If you can prove that 3D printing is the best option for solving an existing problem, the savings gained from solving the problem essentially becomes a return on the company's investment. The last justification strategy is to leverage shared budgets. When the acquisition and operating expenses are split across departments, the decision-making responsibility can shift from corporate management to managers and directors. The added benefit of this approach is that these decision-makers are more likely to appreciate the value of 3D printing. Managers close to the day-to-day operations inherently appreciate, understand, and crave 3D printing's less tangible advantages. And rather than needing proof of the technology's impact, the manager merely needs to decide if the budget can support the purchase. When building a financial justification for 3D printing, there are only 3 steps you need to take. First, determine the financial benefit or value that will be delivered. Next, make a list of the upfront and ongoing costs of 3D printing. Finally, calculate the investment's performance using metrics that management might use in their decision-making process. Let's explore these steps a bit further, starting with defining the value using the tiered strategy we reviewed earlier. When calculating the value of substituting traditional methods and processes with 3D printing, take a look at the current list of outsourced and insourced prototypes, parts, and tools that could be replaced by an in-house 3D printer. Next, collect historical data on these items from the last 12 to 36 months. This would include information about the part, how much it cost, and how long it took to make. Then, make a projection of the 3D printer's workload for the next 3 to 5 years based on company goals and plans. Finally, divide the prototypes, parts, and tools into categories based on size and complexity and review each category of items to determine the percentage that can be produced using 3D printing. This data can be used later to determine the estimated cost savings you would receive if each of these items was produced with 3D printing. Now it is time to calculate the actual cost of all these parts when made with conventional manufacturing processes or by third-party 3D printing companies. For outsourced items, use invoices to determine average costs for each category of parts and make sure to include all expenses such as part costs, engineering charges, labor charges, expedite fees, shipping and handling charges, and taxes. If including in-house items, a cost estimate for these parts will need to be created. For large corporations, internal cross-charges make the calculation simple, and records of the interdepartmental charges document the expense of these parts. If cross-charges are not used, seek advice from the company's cost accountants. They will be able to devise a cost estimation methodology. Once you have all this historical data, create a spreadsheet. Enter the sum of the outsourced and in-house costs in the first year column for the return value. For the example shown, we input $75,000 as the return. Note that this value does not reflect the net return since it excludes the cost of 3D printing the parts, which we'll calculate later. If calculating the value of substitution doesn't provide the full justification you need, or if larger financial returns are needed to obtain approval, then move to calculating the value of augmentation. Remember, augmentation is doing more of the same work, which the decision maker might perceive as an added expense instead of an inherent financial value. So you need to draw a connection that shows how doing more prototypes or part iterations can help reduce rework, accelerate product development, and decrease manufacturing costs. To illustrate how augmentation can lead to savings, let's look at an example. Volvo Trucks wanted to produce more durable and ergonomic manufacturing and assembly tools in less time. But at the time, their tools were machined in metal, which required 36 days to design and manufacture. Within 3 months of purchasing a Stratasys 3D printer, they were able to create more than 30 different production tools, including a range of lightweight yet durable clamps and ergonomically designed tool holders to organize their work environment in 94% less time. Next, let's look at calculating the value of extension. With a change to the process, the financial benefits of extension can be quite significant. However, it may also be more difficult to establish the financial value since there is no benchmark. When including extension applications in a justification, look for opportunities enabled by the speed, cost, efficiency, and flexibility of 3D printing. These opportunities would be applications that can't be justified due to the time, cost, or effort associated with using conventional manufacturing processes like machining or molding, but can be solved with Stratasys 3D printers. Some examples of these opportunities include creating early concept models or late-stage manufacturing review prototypes, producing highly complex components or multi-piece assemblies, or customizing tools to expedite production and reduce on-the-job injuries. Let's explore how one company used 3D printing to extend into other applications. China Eastern Airlines, CEA, operates a modernized fleet of over 600 aircraft. But there are times when replacement parts are needed sooner than the airline can get them from suppliers. To solve that problem, engineers from the airline's maintenance division, Eastern Airlines Technic, set up a lab with a Stratasys Fortis 450MC 3D printer to make the part instead. Since its inception, the lab has successfully produced and installed more than 300 finished parts, making CEA the first domestic airline to have 3D printed interior parts in commercial planes. The company also cut lead times by 91% and costs by 48% while still ensuring safe, comfortable flights for passengers. Now let's move on to expense calculations, which you'll need to build your justification. Initial expenses will include the cost to acquire the 3D printing equipment, the cost to get everything up and running, and the cost to go from CAD file to finished prototype. For ongoing expenses, you'll need to calculate what it's going to cost per part. That includes material costs and machine parts, such as tips or build sheets. You'll also want to calculate runtime to determine if the machine you're looking to acquire has the capacity to handle all of the parts, prototypes, and tools that you have in your justification. Next, you'll need to get an estimate on labor to understand what your staffing requirements are going to be. And finally, make sure to account for maintenance and repair, the things you'll need to keep the machine running. After you have the costs for initial and ongoing expenses laid out, drop them into your spreadsheet. For the example shown, we input $50,000 for the capital equipment, or the initial expense, in the first column. We also input $5,000 for the operating expense, which brings our total investment in 3D printing to $55,000. So now that we have the data we need, we can calculate the return. First, you'll need to seek guidance on which financial performance measures your company uses. For example, is it return on investment? Is it net present value? Is it payback period? Is it internal rate of return? You'll also need to understand what the hurdle rate is, which is the lowest minimum threshold for an investment to be considered. An example of a hurdle rate could be achieving an ROI of 250% or more. When you run your numbers, check to see if you've met those hurdle rates. If the hurdle rate wasn't met, go back through the entire process and add more parts in. Look for more substitutions or add in your augmentation and extension justifications until you get to a point that the number is justifiable. Without a doubt, the greatest benefit of using Stratus's 3D printers is the ability to make individual parts fast, regardless of complexity. That speed enables companies to change designs and remake parts without impacting time to market. This potential is what draws many to the technology, but time can be very hard to quantify in a financial justification. One strategy you can use to make the time and money connection is to consider past occurrences where missed deadlines resulted in added expense. For example, if prototypes meant for a focus group are late, the company will have to eat the cost of a session that never takes place. Another strategy is noting the accelerated process the 3D printing affords, which may lead to an increase in productivity and a decrease in overall time to market. To include this information in your justification, you'll need to capture the monetary value of a day saved. And if time cannot be translated to a monetary value, consider noting it in the business case as an added benefit on top of the financial rewards. Even if it can't be monetized, it's a significant and unique advantage. So, to summarize the strategies we discussed, be sure to use the tiered approach of substitution, augmentation, and extension to build the foundation of your business case for 3D printing. Also, solve for problems that your company is currently dealing with and make 3D printing a solution with real, quantifiable value. For more information about justifying the cost of 3D printing, download our white paper at stratusys.com or contact your local rep. Thank you.